The South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry is calling for government to repackage part of the COVID relief aid and use it to finance the vaccine rollout. Reports this week say government is proposing a wide range of measures to fund its ambitious COVID-19 vaccination procurement drive, including possible tax hikes and reprioritizing government spending. Advocate Mtho Xulu from SACCI joins me via Zoom. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News this afternoon. So government announced that 500 billion rand relief scheme in April. Which part of that do you want repackaged and why?
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for having us. Part of the 500 billion, you would know that 200 billion was set aside as a loan guarantee scheme that was backed up by government and to be distributed to the banks. And that is the portion of the intervention that we are saying must be repackaged. The 200 billion that is a loan guarantee scheme that has not had any decent uptake from the business community. And the last report showed that only 10% of the 200 billion was actually committed. And we believe that that may be the resource that the government has at its disposal to finance the rollout of the vaccine program.
When you talk about the scheme not being successful and the issue of uptake, is that not a matter of time and perhaps businesses waiting or businesses going into trouble and then later on trying to access that facility, that 200 billion rand facility?
It's been, we're now almost a year into the pandemic and only 10% has been taken up. And I think the problem initially was that there were complaints about the requirements. An amendment was done to try and encourage more uptake, and still those changes have not driven any decent uptake. And the problem is that businesses will not take up loans in an economically depressed environment at a time when there's still uncertainty about which sectors are allowed to trade. So generally, business people will be averse to taking up loans and committing themselves to a debt situation if they're not sure about the economic recovery trajectory. And that's the main problem, that you don't go into business to be in debt. You want an investment that you can use to grow your business. And in this climate, the loan guarantee scheme does not encourage business confidence and a proper productive investment in the economy. And therefore, the uptake is not likely to improve, no matter how much time we give it.
All right. How do you then foresee the vaccine program being rolled out, and what do you see as the associated costs with that?
So the number that came out is that government is talking in the region of about 20 billion rands needed for the vaccines, so depending on where we buy them from. But let's work on the 20 billion rands. The loan guarantee scheme, government has guaranteed 200 billion to be distributed to businesses, to pay salaries, to pay rent, and so forth. So the scheme is already guaranteed, and the money was dispersed by the Reserve Bank and is being distributed through the banks. And our view is that let's rather focus on using that scheme and that guarantee to unlock the resources from the banks, and the banks can do this at cost. We can then fully finance the vaccine rollout, because once we have a fully funded vaccine rollout, then it means that more and more South Africans can get back to work. We don't have to worry about the spreading of the pandemic, because we will be fully vaccinated and will be in a better position. And that guarantee, instead of guaranteeing loans that are possibly likely to go bust, let's rather guarantee a vaccine rollout, because with more economy, government will recover all the losses in taxes. So it's an investment in the reopening of the economy, and it's one of probably the most sustainable way of economic recovery.
Advocate Xulu, what engagements, if any, have you had with the banks around your suggestion as SACCI?
We have not had engagements with the banks. I think our primary focus now is to engage government, because it's a decision of government on how the restructuring will be done. The banks are just simply a distribution channel to make it easier for government to reach the target market. But I think the decision lies largely with the National Treasury to change this, and for the presidency and the health minister to really, impress upon the National Treasury that we change the scheme, even if we cut it in half. So we keep 100 billion for those who may want the loans from the loan guarantee scheme, and we take 100 billion and we support the rollout. It's money better spent, because in that way we'll have better vaccination, we can all get back to work, the economy can recover, more taxes for government, and more stability in terms of our management of the pandemic. So the work we are doing now is mainly with government and not necessarily with the banks.
All right, you've spoken as well as SACCI about the need for confidence in rebuilding South Africa's economy. Even before the pandemic, South Africa's economy was in recession and there appeared to be a lack of confidence and many other issues affecting the economy. How will that be built in a pandemic and post-pandemic environment?
The reasons pre-pandemic for the low levels of confidence, are well documented in terms of the infrastructure that is needed to really thrive economically in South Africa. We have not had those properly in place, and there's been a lot of talks about structural reforms that unfortunately had taken too long in the implementation phase. And when the pandemic came about, we obviously had to change tack in that regard. Now, any discussion on a new normal and economic recovery should also be coupled with a greater intensity on those structural reforms, and also making sure that we redesign and restructure the economy in a way that we can respond to the challenges that we witnessed as a result of the pandemic. So it remains a golden opportunity to use this crisis situation to really position the economy in a way that we want to drive structural reforms and to boost the necessary confidence. And one of the reasons that dampening confidence now is that people are not sure whether they'll be able to go back to full production. And we believe that a decently funded vaccine program by using the loan guarantee scheme would allow us to have the necessary confidence to go back to work and not fear that there'll be another lockdown in months to come.
Mm-hmm. Advocate Xulu, you speak about the ways in which we can get the confidence back and get people back to work. What role, if in any significant way, do you think misinformation is going to play when it comes to the actual vaccine? Let's say there is a 20 billion rand fund reprioritized to vaccinate about 67% of the population. There's quite a large amount of misinformation and disinformation about the vaccine, what it can do, and a lot of people anecdotally saying they will not take it because they don't trust what's in it.
Yes, and I think because it's a novel vaccine, some people may be fearful. I think we need to obviously clamp down on those people who deliberately peddle misinformation because most of them actually know better, but they're just trying to score some points in distorting our fight back against this pandemic. So for those who are organized misinformation peddlers, I think we need to clamp down heavily on those. But those who are genuinely concerned about what's in the vaccine, I think the various authorities that are in the health ministry needs to step up. The regulators in place need to go out on a greater drive to give confidence to South Africans about the process of verification of these vaccines internationally and whether they are aligned with our standards in South Africa. Mm-hmm. And also a discussion on what else we can do as a country to build on the various researches that have been confirmed internationally. So it will be a continuous discussion, but we need to make sure that our agencies in the health ministries are leading the conversation. The necessary role players are clamping down on those who are deliberately peddling misinformation. And I think once we start the rollout, the fear will subside because once the work starts getting out there, people will know exactly what we are doing and the information will be coupled with the rollout. So we need to be in front of the conversation, and I think the agencies are fully resourced. The Coronavirus Command Council would have to also jack up their communication resources. But I think it can be a success. We just have to make sure that we are in front of the conversation.
Mtho Xulu, who's the president of the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, joining us via Zoom there. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News this afternoon.